Larry, you good?
Yep.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Free Thought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We're recording this on Sunday morning, January 23rd, 2022. I'm Larry Rhodes, or Doubter5, and as usual, we have our co-host Wombat on the line with us. Hello, Wombat.
Hello.
¿Qué pasa? And our guests today are Jeremy Schultz. Is that Jeremy Schultz, right? And where are you located, Jeremy?
I'm in Ames, Iowa.
Iowa. Okay, welcome to the
Home
show.
of Iowa State University.
All right.
Cyclones.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't. John Richards from over the pond from England. You're in London, is that right, or a little outside?
I'm on the coast.
He's clearly in London right now. Look behind him.
Look at his
Can't you see
background,
behind him?
sure.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
One is
And,
green screen.
And from a little south of Knoxville, in a small town in East Tennessee, George Brown, 2.5. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's so cold he's frozen right now, so don't let that bother you.
Yep. Digital Free Thought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, and the sciences. And conversely, we'll also talk about religion, religious faiths, gods, holy books, and superstition. And if you think you're the only non-believer in town, well, you're just not. Even in Knoxville, in a small Bible Belt town in Tennessee, we have over 1,000 members. So you must have several in your town. Start a club. We'll talk more about it later on. We'll tell you more about the Knoxville Club, Atheist Society of Knoxville, after the mid-show break. Wombat, what are we going to be talking about today?
Today we're talking about the thoughts of the days, and brace yourself because it's going to be very European. I'm looking forward to it. But we do have a guest on the show. Why don't we do a quick introduction? Jerry, tell us your whole life story in 30 seconds. Go.
I'm Jeremy Schultz. I have lived in Iowa most of my life. I spent a brief summer in Portland, Oregon, but otherwise it's been Iowa. Was raised Lutheran, but left the faith when I was like 15, and have been kind of dabbled in like neo-paganism and
interesting
stuff like that.
Okay.
But then just gave it all up. Said I really don't know. I'm kind of just exploring right now. I met John, and that's how I got on to this lovely program.
I dig it. Jeremy, you said you were a Lutheran before. That tends to be the most placid of all forms of Christianity. It seems really in the vibe with Iowa, especially Ames. Why'd you leave in the first place? Not to make the assumption that you were born Christian, but like I'm saying, like, why did you leave the Lutheran? Seems like a cool click.
Well, I just couldn't. There was some cognitive dissonance, what I was learning in science and everything else just didn't jibe with the Lutheran beliefs, so that's why I gave it up.
Didn't jibe.
Very good. Very well.
I had a similar experience myself growing up. I realized I could not multiply my fish sandwiches, and I got very frustrated. Right, John, I have so many thoughts on what Jeremy said, but I know you got thoughts of your own. Why don't you walk us through it?
Right. Well, this thought for the day thing is a 2-minute slot on BBC Radio 4 that we've been subjected to since 1970. And we've only ever, I think, twice had a right of reply. And there's an interesting story about that, because one of the rights of reply, or the opportunities to give an alternative view from the Christian one, because as you know, we've got this silly situation of an established church.
Right.
And one of the opportunities that was given to an atheist was given to Richard Dawkins, and he gave such an address that he offended so many people. They immediately took it off, and if you try and find it on the internet now, it says this website has been removed.
Oh no!
Wow, it's that. So you couldn't even find a clip on YouTube of it or anything like that?
No, it's gone. They've erased it. But
bleached from the internet.
What we do have, you might be able to find it on Wayback Machine or something like that. But what we do have, thanks to the Humanist UK, is the text. So we've got the script from his. You'd like me to read a couple of bits from this? He started out by saying, when a terrible disaster happens, an air crash, a flood, or an earthquake, people thank God that it wasn't worse. But then, why did he let the earthquake happen at all? Or, even more childish and self-indulgent, thank God for the traffic jam that made me miss that plane. But what about all the unfortunate people who didn't miss the plane? The same kind of infantile regression tempts us when we try to understand the natural world. And they didn't like being referred to as infantile. He ends it by saying,
That's weird because they're literally called children of God, or children or sheep of the flock, or like
but they
Holy
don't.
Father. Like, come on, guys, you can't have it both ways.
Well, that's right. Yeah. But he ends it by saying, humanity can leave the crybaby phase and finally come of age. Now, that caused so many ructions that we were never allowed to have the 2-minute broadcast again.
Wow.
But what I've started doing is my own right to reply. So, and I'd like to get you guys' opinion of this. So I'm going to play a recording of one of the recent thoughts for the day, and I'm going to stop it when you put your hands up because you want to say something to refute what you've just heard. Okay.
Sounds good. So everybody on the radio, we are watching as a clip is being played, and when we pause the show, it's because one of us made an effort to speak up. George Brown, feel free to unmute yourself and just jump into the conversation whenever you need to.
Yeah,
I'm jumping.
Okay.
Go for it, John.
Here goes. In an age when advertisements can be withdrawn for misrepresentation and political claims can be fact-checked, shouldn't religious propaganda be subjected to the same critical analysis? This is Thought for the Day Debunked. You are listening to a programme from BBC Radio 4.
The Reverend Dr. Giles Fraser, Rector of St Mary Newington.
Good morning. It was on this day in 1844 that Charles Darwin wrote probably his most famous letter to his best friend Joseph Hooker, in which he began tentatively to explain his ideas about natural selection. It's like confessing to a murder, Darwin wrote. And for many in the coming decades, the victim of this murder was none other than the Almighty himself.
Oh, man.
Notice.
So you obviously have some comments that you're going to put in there. What I'm noticing about these thoughts of the days were, I'm going to just be honestly here, speak honestly here. One, it seems like it started off with a good intention of just helping people be thoughtful and charitable with, some degree of empathy about the human condition before they head out to the start of their day. And then somehow now, especially after what you just told me about the Richard Dawkins situations, it has become this back and forth sort of toxic sort of tit and tat, where it's like, one, I'm not a Christian, so why do I have to subject myself to some pastor talking to me every day? Yes. Now I finally have a chance to talk. Let me tell you all the problems I have with this guy. Oh, now I'm the Christian again. You're not going to have your shot anymore. And now I'm going to complain about the things you said way back when. It's like, you guys, not only do I not have a chance to respond to that anymore, that's just going to make me even more vicious. I feel like it's lost its point.
It's intrusive. Jeremy, it started out as a homily, and a few pleasant words at the beginning of the day, but it's turned into mostly Christian propaganda.
Jeremy, how do you feel? It's kind of a radical start to a thought of the day, don't you think? Murder, and victimizing God, and
Darwin murders God. I don't know. Well, I can see how. I kind of feel like evolution and religion are independent of one another. Like one could be proven false and it wouldn't have any bearing on the truth of the other, right? So if I were to prove evolution false, it wouldn't then make God true or Christianity true. If I could prove Christianity false, that wouldn't make evolution true. I mean, so it seems like I encounter this a lot online, and I that's just the first thought that came to my mind when I was listening to this segment.
Larry, do you feel the same? Evolution proving it true or wrong doesn't necessarily mean religion is true. And I'm only speaking because you're on mute, my friend. So don't mind me as I'm just
Right.
talking.
I used to do a lot of Ask an Atheist tables, in public, but kind of coronavirus put an end to that. But I did it for years, and you'd be surprised at the people that would sit down and say, well, where do you think we came from? Like it makes any difference at all. I could say pink unicorns created us, and that would be silly, and they would say so. But that doesn't remove their burden of proof for their own claims. For the claims of magic or miracles or poofing us from dust or making us from ribs. They're making all these claims, not providing any evidence at all. And they think that they can shift the burden simply by asking us where we
Right.
think everything came from.
Absolutely. George Brown, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Do you think evolution and finding issues with it is a good way to prove religion?
This whole line of reasoning is new to me. So it's like I take it in and I ponder it. It's not in my background to be engaged with people in arguments of this kind. And I'm just puzzled. I mean, here I am living in the Bible Belt.
Sure.
And I find that conversations I have with people sometimes seem very strange to me, and I don't quite understand why. And the only thought I have coming back to what Larry just said is that this is the way that these people have been trained to think.
Right.
I'm right and you are wrong. Basically,
Right.
it comes down to that.
No matter what.
No matter
And in
what.
spite of
I mean,
any evidence. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if I'm correct about that. It's just what
I'm
think.
glad that it is strange to you, because that should be strange. That is in my head, the right reaction. It shouldn't be something that you hear and think, oh yeah, that's normal. You should totally have those kinds of arguments. It's like, no, this is very bizarre. We're living in a weird twilight zone where there's a great majority of people that believe, that there's this supernatural concept to the universe that hasn't been proven or demonstrated once in the history of mankind. You know what? I'm tired of poking fun at Christians. I'm actually going to put on my Christian hat right now. I got my Christian hat on right now. And from my perspective, I feel like there was a missed opportunity in marketing here. I'm saying this as a Christian to the Reverend that is speaking right now, because you have what I love the most in my whole Christian life is an angry atheist. You have an angry little vile atheist who's popular and everybody knows his name, and he's a great mascot for angry atheism, which is a brand new thing. It's never been around before, so I'm coining it right now. It's a brand new thing, angry atheism. It's just as wrong as all the other new ones. And put him on the radio, show how angry he is, put it on every week, and then immediately back program it with me being calm and being like, you know what? I forgive Richard. He's clearly very angry. He clearly needs God. Let me go back to the peaceful word of the days. And then whenever I feel like I'm losing some of that tithe little sugar, I just throw that little Richard angry atheist clip back on again, get everybody riled up. And then they come back to me. Genius. I don't know why. I don't know why he didn't take the opportunity. The marketing was right there. Anyway, thank God he didn't. John, how do you feel before we go back? You can take us back in anytime you're ready.
Well, I had a response which I've recorded into this here, so I could I'm going to play that and listen to it myself.
Sure. So we're now going to listen to John listening to himself. Isn't that great? Riveting YouTube, guys. Go for it.
Despite there being no evidence for his actual existence.
16 years later, Hooker was also there at that famous argument between Bishop Wilberforce and Thomas Huxley that set the tone for the whole of the Victorian debate about science and religion. The bishop asked Huxley if he was descended from an ape on his mother or his father's side. And
this is a famous historical encounter.
Sure.
And my contention is, because he goes on to say that Huxley then took against the Christians. And my contention is that the bishop was deliberately offensive. Of course, Huxley would take against him because that's what he wanted to happen.
Sure. I also hear a conflation. I also hear a conflation of evolution being, we're descended from acorns, which is, more steps away from the idea of being descended from monkeys. It's the same root problem of no, it's a branch. Yes, Larry's doing the example. It's a branch. It's not a linear fashion evolution.
Yeah.
And the funny part is the biochemist in me, the PhD biochemist, is like, actually, acorns are more genetically complex than human beings because they have 3 sets of DNA in every cell. They have the ones from mitochondria, they have the nucleus, and then they also have this chloroplast whole organelle that can take light and turn it into sugar, like UV sunlight, and turn that into like food. We can't do that. That's crazy. And we only got 2 pairs per cell. It's kind of crazy. But Jeremy, it looked like you may want to say some things. What's going on with you? How do you feel about the idea of you're descended from an acorn?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I was kind of just reminded of like the Scopes monkey trial. That's kind of the analog here in the States, I guess, about what schools can teach. But I mean, other than that, I don't really have many other thoughts about it. So
Scopes monkey trial is a good one. And what I found enlightening was the entire transcript is available in a textbook form that people can read as part of like a high school curriculum. And when I was a Christian in high school, I read that and I was cheering for the religious side. I remember that very clearly.
Really?
And when I realized that their side lost, I was like, and I just put the book away. I mean, I just was like,
well, the religious side won on the Scopes monkey trial.
Not as hard as I wanted them to. Because the whole time I'm like, this guy, the religious guy, feels like he's losing, like he's not making any points. None of his arguments are making any sense. I'm just like, this guy's making me upset, because if I was there, I'd be like, let me tell you about the evolution guy.
Well, the deck was stacked against the evolution in the small town of Dayton, Tennessee.
It still is. It still is. Even in big cities like Knoxville, it's still watered down, unfortunately.
Just for the benefit of the audience, some of who may not know the history of this, although the Scopes religious side won, shortly after, the federal government came out and said you're not allowed to teach creation as though it's an equivalent alternative to evolution. And for many years that prevailed until the Dover versus Kitzmiller trial.
In Pennsylvania.
They had another go.
And that video is an excellent video as well. And I recommend people find it and watch it.
Yeah. And they lost that time.
And the weirdest thing is, I've actually been in undergraduate and we're looking at fossils. We went out on a field trip, pulled fossils out from the side of a road, like one of those. Have you ever driven down the road and you've seen like cut cliffs on both sides? That is deep enough where you can get into like pretty great fossil records. In fact, oil companies will use those kinds of like superficial layers to determine where much more useful stuff is, kilometers below the ground, kilometers behind the ground. And so there's a really beautiful fossil called Constellara fabulosa that if you find it, it's a seashell that has stars on it, literal like perfect little patterned stars on it. If you find it, guaranteed there's oil. Guaranteed there's oil. We got a lot of digested plant matter and whatever below. And when I was looking at that, I was like, oh, that's so great. Like that must be how oil companies did. And I remember, and the teacher was like, yeah, that's how they do it. And then a kid raised his hand in the background and the teacher's like, you can talk. And the guy's like, well, I don't believe that because I believe in Jesus Christ. And the whole thing was like, oh no, because we were in the back of my head, I was already becoming an atheist by that point, and we were the only 2 Black kids in the room. And I'm like, no, don't make me look bad. I'm not with this guy. I felt so bad. And then, but probably like 50% of the class already agreed with that guy anyway. But I was just like, yeah, but there are Black atheists as well. Like it's totally a thing. I'm sorry for that tangent, John.
Well, I'm interested now because I didn't know you had
go for
this background, Ty. I didn't know that you came out of a religion, and I know your age is a lot younger than me, and I'm wondering whether you were exposed to Of Pandas and People. Did you text that textbook?
Wait, did you say Of Pandas and People?
Yeah. Did you meet that textbook?
No. What is this textbook? Talk to me.
Really? Oh well, it's a creation. It started life as a creationist textbook, and they almost got sales to a large number of school districts in the Bible Belt. And then the Dover Kitzmiller trial came about, and they had to
I had this
rejig
book.
it.
I had this book.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just looked it up.
yeah.
Oh,
They
no.
had to rejig it because they realized that they were disobeying the law because creationism was banned in schools at that time. So it was illegal to have that book. So what they did was they went through it with a search and replace piece of software, and they every place where it said previously creationist, they substituted intelligent design proponent.
Correct.
Unfortunately, the software didn't work perfectly. So in at least one occasion, it says intelligent design proponentist. Oh, C. Intelligent
creation, intelligent presided.
Yeah, the two phrases mixed up. So it began with the C from creation, then it went into intelligent design, and it ended with the ist of creationist. So
you're absolutely right about this book. I totally had this growing up. I remember this cover. I didn't know it was one of those books. That's how indoctrinated you could be when I had it. But I can also tell you that I've gone to the Collegiate University of Kentucky, UK's bookstore when I was hanging out with Eric. And I just wanted to see what kind of books were there and what they said about biology. And not only were the sections on evolution depressingly short, just like a couple of paragraphs, many of them, in fact, most of them had the capital C creator as the supplementary explanation over everything that was explained in the top paragraph to define what, in my opinion, is and what actually is the third pillar of biology. It's like the third law of biology. It's like evolution and life changes over time. It's like, you can even just say that? No, that's crazy. Nutty.
So there you go. That was the final straw in the Dover versus Kitzmiller case. The C intelligent design proponentist was a giveaway.
Larry, how much time we got before we go out for the top of the half hour?
Oh, we're getting there. I'd say another 2-3 minutes. But one of the other things that really sunk that ship in the Dover trial was that the creationists ended up lying to the judge about where the money came from for some of the things that happened in there, saying that, oh, we didn't give them money for this. And then if the judge found out their name was at the bottom of the check. And judges don't like being lied to. It doesn't help the case.
Good judges don't.
Good judges. And this, you would think that this would be like a very liberal judge, from an elite college and appointed by a liberal president, but it was a George W. Bush appointee. He was a conservative judge. He looked at all the evidence and said that intelligent design was creationism, and it was religion. It was illegal to teach it in school.
Yep.
It's crazy the extent of polarization in the US, where I used to flinch when I heard George W. Bush, and now it's just like, oh, that guy, what a relief.
Definitely a step up from the last president.
George Brown, you got a quick point? Go for it.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we had exhausted John's topic. I think we were talking about the BBC and this.
I've got more of it if you want.
I want more of it. In fact, we'll get to more of it right after this break, this short break. Larry?
Sure.
Yep. This is the Digital FreeThought Radio Hour. We're on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And we'll be right back after this short break.
Recording, don't forget to start. Perfect.
Thank you.
Everybody good? Cool. Larry,
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello, and welcome back to the second half of the Digital FreeThought Radio Hour. I'm Doubter 5, and we're on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Now let's talk about the Atheist Society of Knoxville. ASK was founded in 2002. We're in our 20th year. ASK has over 1,000 members, and we have weekly in-person meetings in the Knoxville Old City Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria. Look for us inside at the high-topped tables. Usually we're in the center, the loudest and happiest group. We also have weekly virtual meetings if you don't like to get out during COVID. If you'd like to join our Tuesday evening virtual Zoom meetings, you can email us and we'll send you the link. Send it to askanatheist@knoxvilleatheists.org or let'schatsE@gmail.com. You can find Digital Free Thought Radio Hour on Facebook, meetup.com, or, you can find the atheist group there or at knoxvilleatheist.org, or just Google Knoxville Atheist. It's just that simple. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you should still go to Meetup and do a search for an atheist group in your town. Don't find one? Start one. Wombat, where do you want to pick up?
Yeah, I think my takeaway on the first half is if they just called it unintelligent design, I think I'd be way more likely to be on board, because that just makes way more sense. It'll explain why I have nipples, and 2 of them at that, right?
Evolution is unintelligent design.
Yeah, if they just say, hey, it's unintelligent design, things are just happening. And like, if there was a designer, he's not good. So it's probably a guy. There's too many corners and sawed off parts. So who knows? John Richards, why don't you take us through our next subject? Go for it.
Yeah, well, I'll play a bit more of this recording of the thought for the day of a couple of weeks ago. And you'll see where I take exception to them having a platform. How dare they? Here we go. Set by the bishop with his deliberately ridiculing question. And this is a cherry-picked quote. Let's tell the full story. Huxley is said to have replied that he would not be ashamed to have a monkey for his ancestor, but he would be ashamed to be connected with a man who used his great gifts to obscure the truth.
Huxley, like many of his scientific friends, developed a visceral dislike of the Church of England and of its unwarranted sense of intellectual privilege.
A justifiably visceral dislike of the Church of England, wouldn't you say?
But I wonder if...
So there you go. The guys, the Church of England start out by being offensive, and then they accuse us of disliking them.
Right.
I can imagine why.
Yeah.
I'm really wondering, what's your next thought of the day? What was the next subject on that?
Well, I've got 4 of these now that I've recorded my responses to. I call them Thought for the Day Debunked, and you'll be able to see them on my website, my YouTube channel, which I plug at the end of this show.
Very cool.
It's difficult to say what they focus on, because that one was particularly evolutionarily based, but usually it's just some sort of ramble through pretty things, and then suddenly, slam, Jesus comes in.
Okay, kick the doors down.
Yeah, we call it Jesus smuggling, because to them, the explanation, the answer to everything is not, vaccines or we've evolved morality. It's always, the only explanation is always Jesus.
So true.
Yeah. So do you want me to delve into a different one?
Yeah.
I haven't finished that one, but I'll give you a
that
take.
Is another, we wouldn't do it in this show. It would be another 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
No. I'll delve into one which is done by a woman.
Okay.
I'll play a bit of this one. Here we go.
You are listening to a program from BBC Radio 4.
The Reverend Dr. Isabel Hamley, Theological Advisor to the House of Bishops. Good morning. Growing up in France, the 6th of January was a significant date in everyone's calendar, the day to look forward to once Christmas and presents were over. It was Epiphany, the celebration of the 3 kings or wise men coming to see Jesus. My family wasn't religious, but we still made special cakes, king's cakes, galette des rois, within which we hid a little figure of Jesus. It was one of the great excitements of the year as a child to see which lucky person would find Jesus in a pastry and spit him out triumphantly.
What do you think of that?
I think Jesus, like I said, would be very confused when he comes back and realizes our sudden love of crosses. And he's just like, don't you know I hate those? Don't you know I really, really, really hate those? Okay, we'll take them away, but you got to check out this thing. We take you as a baby, put you in food, and then spit you out. Isn't that awesome? It's like, how isn't this one of the blasphemy things? Don't you know that's at least 4 rules in the 10 Commandments? That's
True.
at least 4 of them.
Well, my response was, don't try this at home. Don't put inedible things in your cakes to choke your children.
Oh, I didn't even know they were inedible. I thought it was like a sugar treat or something that you could just mass produce.
No.
Why isn't America gone on that? This
Yeah.
sugar Jesuses, sugar babies. They should exist.
So that's
Jeremy,
why.
are you familiar with this concept? Have you ever heard of this? Is it Easter what we're talking about? Is this an Easter tradition? Catholic?
Christmas.
Oh, she said January 6th or June
Yeah.
6th or something like that. Like after Christmas and New
Yeah.
Year's.
After Christmas, yeah.
After Christmas. Okay. So baby Jesus in pieces of bread. Have you ever seen it before? Jeremy? No?
It's the first I've heard of it.
Okay.
Is this a French tradition?
Yeah, it was because she was born in France. But we have a similar one here where we put silver threepenny bits, or more recently, silver sixpences. Do you want me to say threepenny bits again? Silver sixpences in Christmas puddings. And there have been.
I don't know what any of these words mean. All right. So a pence is a cent, and pudding is not pudding, but is actually like pastry dough. It's like a soft fruit cake or something like that.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
a boiled cake that you have afterwards with custard. So
Don't know what that is either. It's fine. Keep going.
It's good. It's good. Trust me. It tastes good.
yeah. So the thing is, there's been 1 or 2 babies or children who have been hospitalized with a threepenny bit stuck in their throat because, of course, their God designed our throats to have a cross path, So
Right. Yeah. The intelligent design. You should breathe and drink through the same hole. I don't think there's going to be a problem with that. Everything's good there, right? We shouldn't be able to breathe and eat at the same time. And then the dolphins are like, I want a revision 2, please. It's like, okay, well, top of your head, because I thought I had something good going here. But Larry, I'd love to hear from you. The idea that a lot of the traditions that we have to celebrate gods in almost out of context almost look like blasphemy in practice.
Oh, the way that we practice it? Yeah. You would think so. I can't think of any specific examples right off, but the ones that you mentioned do break all kinds of rules. I mean, even painting a picture of him, putting it up on the wall is iconographic or worshiping an icon.
Iconography.
Yeah,
right.
Iconography, which is expressly forbidden in the commandments. So, I mean, just one thing after another. But there are a lot of practices in religious observances themselves that do that, like eating the body of Christ. I know that Jesus himself, said, eat this and all that according to the Bible. But the rest of the Bible really wouldn't support that, especially the earlier Testament.
The weird thing is when you make the body of Christ out of crackers and juice, you break them apart, you give them out to everybody. And when there's some left over, you just throw it away.
Right.
You're like, I don't want crackers and juice. I got better food at home. Just throw it away. It's like, whoa. You're throwing away Jesus. Didn't you misconnect there?
Well, question is, should the leftover crackers be crucified or just buried?
And does holy wine go bad?
It should, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it technically is.
I mean, how could it if it's holy?
But if it didn't, it would be wine. I don't know. I don't know how holy works. I don't know how magic works. That's the whole thing. Yeah, but that's a nice little tangent. Let's get back into it, John.
Well, I wanted to ask George, after following what we were talking about last week, what's the difference between sourdough and unleavened bread?
Ooh.
Listen, I have no idea. Well, sourdough, having lived in San Francisco for many years, sourdough is a tradition in San Francisco. And as far as I know, it's made from generations of saving a ball of dough. You keep on saving it and using it as a starter. Of course, it's just all biology. And the thing that always puzzled me about, let's say, matzah, for instance, unleavened bread, or white rice in Asia, is the tradition of matzah that I know is white flour, is used, and that implies to me that the good part of the flour is ground away, of the wheat.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So
Think-
how
yeah.
did they do that back in the old days? Did they really do that? And
Only the
is-
ones who did it right survived. That's how they did it back. Everyone else was
I
like,
mean,
yeah, you can eat
but
this. Oh, we're
they're
gone.
taking all the nutrition out by, I mean, they make it stable. It's going to last forever, but it has no nutrition in it. So I'm
Well-
puzzled. I'm just puzzled by that.
Yeah, one of the things I just looked it up online, and I was thinking that sourdough is leavened bread.
It
so
is,
the
yeah.
biggest difference between unleavened bread and sourdough is it's leavened.
Yes. What happens is instead of adding yeast, you add this old bit of dough, which has gone naturally yeasty thanks to there being yeast in the air.
Wild yeast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I just
I
wanted
want to say too that I don't like it.
Oh, I do. I love sourdough.
I mean sourdough bread.
So, quick little moment with my Christian hat on, real quick, before we get back to it. But it does turn out that, and partial Christian hat, partial biochemistry PhD hat. Evolution has gotten things wrong. I know, isn't that crazy? Because the way how it's originally proposed didn't account for things like genetics or microbiomes and all those, more complex factors that we've realized that takes significant components in how evolution takes part in the world. But the thing is, we figured that out because science is not an event; it's a process, guys. It's always been a process.
Yeah.
Method.
And yeah, it's a method. It's a process. It's a journey of discovery. And as we find out more things using science, we get a better understanding of how the world works. And that is an umbrella term for how we've come about with the best tool set to figure out how reality works. We call it science, but it also involves so many other things. And some of that some of that is understanding that when you've done something wrong or explained something not completely, you have opportunities to get more comprehensive understandings.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about that compared to religion is that religion never self-corrects itself or fact checks, whereas science is always doing that. And
Religion never seems to correct science. I mean, give one example of where science got it wrong and religion got it right. I mean,
there's no. Are you sure bats aren't birds though? I don't know. We might have to come back to that. Though I would say our whole understanding of how science is today may not be what it's like 100 years from now. So like this might age very, very poorly. That said, the concept of how we improved our understanding of evolution won't be through religious means. It'll just be through more scientific understanding and pursuit.
Right.
That's the beautiful mark behind it all. All right.
And it's never finished either. Science doesn't consider itself in a position to be able to stop, whereas religion did 2,000 years ago.
It's true. The ending's right there in the book.
Yeah.
What a revelation. All right, John.
So do you want me to play a little bit more of this?
Yeah,
one?
go for it. Let's hear what she did after she spit out the body of the Son of God.
Find when they ate the spoonful. But unfortunately, maybe it was the Christian God who unintelligently designed our throat so that there's a crossover between our food tube and our breathing tube.
It was just cake, just a little figure, which in history even used to be a broad bean, just a small celebration with family or friends. But in that simplicity, something precious was hidden. Togetherness, a memory that for Christians, God isn't found primarily in places of wealth, influence, or power, but in the ordinariness of daily life.
I'm very old. I've had a lot of daily life, and I've never found God. Is he in the kitchen? No. The toilet? Maybe, perhaps not. Maybe he's in the garden, hiding. Why would he hide?
So what I'm noticing a lot is that religion will often forget that all the good things that come from it can be, just as easily received from a secular lifestyle or secular holiday setting. And so what she's saying is, by chewing this piece of plastic that was in a cake and spitting it out in front of my friends and family as they're eating at the same time too, and hoping we all maintain our appetites, as we spit out the figurehead of our religious God. That puts us together. And I'm like, you could just play PlayStation. Like that. There's 4 controllers. I guarantee you can
Or
be pretty
Monopoly
close to
or
each other.
some cards.
Oh, Monopoly's
for
going
that
to tear you
matter.
apart. Larry, you always go for the troll answer. But Larry, I do feel like there's really nothing that religion has a monopoly on in terms of outside its
Oh, heck
eminent
no.
book.
Yeah. Christopher Hitchens always says, name one thing that religions, one good thing that religions can do that secular people can't do.
Right.
And verifiable thing. I mean, they can hope for heaven or hell, but they
Right.
can't verify that they're real.
Right.
That type of thing. But
I can tell you, I'm just as equipped to pray for somebody,
Mhm.
but I'd rather,
And
tell
there's
them to get
nothing
vaccinated.
keeping any secular people for hoping for a good afterlife if they want to.
Right.
You don't have to have religion for that.
Now I am looking up the Jesus baby toys, and it is in fact like an inch piece of plastic that you put into cakes.
Going the king cake.
Yeah.
It really blows my mind because they should have made it out of sugar or food. Jeremy, wouldn't that have been awesome? Because then you have essentially a treat
Snack.
that you can like just snack on, and just like, what are you eating, Jesus?
Yeah,
It's
but,
like,
but
okay.
you wouldn't
That's
discover it and spit it out, would you? Just eat it.
And where would the tradition be?
Yeah.
We are that fat, isn't it? But the saddest part of it all is that the baby is in a crucifix position, which bothers me. I'm gonna go a little darker too. I think it might be ironic for the people who have gone hospitalized or had to go to the hospital. The children who may have had an unfortunate incident. If they died and they went to heaven because they choked on Jesus, and Jesus is like, "Hey, welcome," and he's like, "Not you again." You couldn't write this. You couldn't write this. Anyway, John, go for it. Or George, did you have any comments?
George,
No, I'm puzzled. I'm just puzzled by all of this because I didn't grow up with any of it.
No, I have heard of this, but I've never had a in-depth conversation about it. It's just something that I also know that people plant, if I'm right, the saint of one of the Catholic saints in their backyards when they're about to sell their home for good luck. Is that a thing? Am I getting that right? St. Peter or something like that? Okay, we're all nodding our heads vaguely at that, but yeah, it's a weird thing. Anyway, John, what do you got?
Well, I think she goes on to claim to have ownership and explanation to all of nature.
That discovering the beauty and magic of ordinary things can turn any of us into kings, into lucky people on earth. New Year is often a time for heroes and special people, as in the New Year's honors list, but they can seem remote and their achievements unattainable. Epiphany turns this logic on its head and invites everyone to discover beauty and goodness around them, in things, in people, in actions of kindness and generosity.
Well, fine. So there you go. You see, it's all thanks to Jesus. Without Jesus, we'd have none of that stuff.
I have a serious problem with this baby toy, and I recommend that people look up the Jesus toy. The plastic babies that they put into these cakes,
New Orleans king
are
cakes.
the most jagged things possible.
Mhm.
Like the hands look so sharp, and the feet are even pointed outwards like a swimming divers, and the head is just so bulbous. There's no way you couldn't choke on this if you're trying to swallow it. If you shouldn't put it in your mouth either way. But yeah, I'd rather put a 10 pence. At least then, if I cough it up, I can spend it on something. All right. John, how do you feel? Let's keep going.
It's such bad advice, isn't it, to tell people to bake jagged objects into their cakes so that children can choke on them.
It just doesn't feel like it's the sort of thing that naturally came from the Bible. It feels like it was something that people were doing already, and then someone said, our putting toys into food business is going out of business. How can we stay in business? Make it Jesus. Sell it to the Christians.
Yeah.
But these are jagged things. We might hurt little.
You could break your tooth
old
on
people
it.
and little babies.
Yeah.
Like we only do this as adults, as a drinking game. It's like sell it to the Christians. They'll put it in. They'll take ownership of it. They'll fight to have their babies in their cakes. It's like, fine, I'll just keep making it. And capitalism at the end of the day. This in the same way that Christmas is essentially co-opted pagan holidays from time immemorial up to today, I feel like this is just another one of the traditions added to the list. It's like the Christmas soundtrack. We get one new song every year, and what do you know? That's what we're gonna have to listen to for the rest of our lives. Isn't that great? Anyway, John Richards.
I'll play a little bit more of what she's ranting on about here. Lots of beauty and kindness and generosity all around us. That's great. Are you going to claim ownership of it now then?
The word epiphany often means a moment of sudden revelation, something previously hidden coming into sight. The last couple of years have brought lots of rather unwelcome epiphanies. The realization that despite our technological advances and all our national wealth, we are still fragile, limited, and at times powerless before the forces of nature.
Well, we know that, but they don't. So I don't know why she's suddenly taken up that point of view, because the religious attitude is that we're God's chosen people. We're not trivial at all. We're very special. And we're not vulnerable because we have the Lord to take care of us. So she seems to be arguing against her own religion there.
Not only that, but not to be glib, but if you admit that you're powerless against the forces of nature, don't swallow pieces of plastic in your food. It's a really bad combination.
Don't even put them in the cake.
Yes.
Don't even put them in the cake.
Yes, that's right.
Just say, hey, Jerry won. We're only here because we want to be together. Why are we trying to deliberately poison ourselves? There's so many better games than this.
That's right. So at the end of her 2 minutes, she's saying we're vulnerable. And at the beginning of her 2 minutes, she's saying, do this, poison us.
Poison's fun, kids. And at the end, it's like, and we must watch out for poison. Praise God. I can do these.
So there you go. She's almost finished. I'll just play a little bit more.
Pandemic has reminded us that to be human is to be small and vulnerable. It may not be knowledge we like.
I can't disagree with any of that. We are trivial. We are not special, despite being God's people, so you might claim.
Or want. But Epiphany reminds me that God himself chose not invulnerability or strength, but hid his glory within the fragility of humanity.
It's the condescension, it's the assumption that she's right, so that her God really does exist, despite there being no evidence, and that gives her an opportunity to pontificate from a pulpit at us.
Well, my whole point is, if I were doing this from a scientific point of view, I would say science doesn't really have a grand opinion on the state of human beings. Like when we say in science terms that human bodies are fragile, we don't mean it in a metaphorical sense. It's just like, no, if you smack us with enough force, our bodies will break, and then it takes time for us to heal again, right? Essentially, right? But what she says in fragility is code words for essentially, remember the fact that you're vulnerable and God gives you strength. And I play this little game in my head whenever I hear a religious person use terminology like this, because it's very easy to replace, and this might be a grand topic, but it's very easy to replace God with me, because many people's impression of God is themselves, which is why they are offended when you don't believe in God, because you're essentially offending them. It's like, but if I was talking about your girlfriend, that you had a girlfriend and she wasn't Canadian, if she actually existed, then that's just me who loses out. But like, why are you offended when I say your God doesn't do this? Because I'm actually talking about them. And so she's coming from the perspective of human beings are fragile, but God is not fragile and helps people. And I'm like, all she's doing is self-aggrandizing herself under the context of, I am a powerful person and it feels good to help other people because that makes me feel less vulnerable. So she's prostrating, or essentially, what's the right word? Pushing this concept of vulnerability on everybody else and not on her. And that, in her own religious point of view, helps her stay coherent in a weird, crazy world where she's never had the opportunity to really ask herself difficult questions in this capacity. A lot of judgments on my part, but I feel like I'm hitting the nail on the head every single time. Feel free to let me know if I'm not. All right, we should start winding down pretty soon.
Larry's been waving.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's just another instance of give God the credit. Don't take any for yourself. You know, you may have run that marathon and won the race, but it was God that gave you the strength. You didn't do it. He did. Or the doctor that saved your life. It was God that did it, not all the years of study he put in.
And
Well,
when
it's
everyone thinks they're God, and if everyone thinks they're God, then they like that narrative. It's like, yeah, I helped that person box and win that fight. Yeah, I helped win that race.
It's interesting you should say that, because one of the thought for the days was delivered by Francis Collins, who, you know, the former director of the US Genome Project. That's the one. And so he has managed to compartmentalize his brain so that he switches off this science bit and switches on this religious bit when he walks through the door of a church. And so he said more or less what you just said, Larry. He's saying that he's got no problem with merging together these two separate magisteria. And it's weird. I just can't get my head around that.
Very cool. Jeremy, love to know what you think we should check out before the start of next week. Are you still with us?
I think Jeremy is frozen.
He's looking off to the side. He's still thinking. You guys can check. If you guys can check out my stuff, I'm on Let's Chat on YouTube, and this has been actually kind of fun. John Richards, where can I find more of these thoughts of the day?
They are on FreeThought Productions YouTube channel. There's only one up there now, but I'm going to upload another one every day.
Upload the rebuttals with rebuttals, right? You're not just going to continue to. Yeah, they should start paying you for advertising otherwise. But yeah, I call them debunked, because it's a bit of them and then a bit of me interspersed like that. So FreeThought.
Yeah. I have a question. I have some questions about this.
We'll come back to it after the end of the show. We'll just do some plugs for now. But John Richards, what's the name of your site?
FreeThought Productions, and I had a great chat. You'd love this one, Ty. I don't know whether you've had a chance to hear it yet, but I had a great chat with the lead of Pfizer's technological research department last night, and his job is to try and correlate gene sequencing with microscopy. So it
should be possible.
Yeah, it's very academic. And we start out by talking about his background, because he was brought up as the son of a minister, a Presbyterian minister, and then he left his own faith and became a scientist. And we end the show by talking about science fiction. So it's Star Wars versus Star Trek. You'll love it.
Nice. I love it. That's a great plug for the show. And where can we find it again? One last time?
FreeThought Productions.
Very nice. Larry, I know we're heading out. You've been really nice. Thank you so much. Listen, though, I mean, we only got 1 minute left. Would you mind telling me all about atheism, what it's about? Because I
put it in a book. The book is Atheism, What's It All About? It's available on Amazon, but you can read most of the articles by going to digitalfreethought.com/blog and read the articles that we have there. We also have atheist songs, and our radio show archives are there as well. If you have questions for the show, send them to askanatheist@knoxvilleatheist.org or let'schatsE@gmail.com. If you're having trouble leaving religious beliefs behind, you can get help at recoveringfromreligion.org. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for joining us on Digital FreeThought Radio Hour. Remember, you can find this show on Apple iTunes, Pocket Cast, Amazon, and podcasts everywhere. Just search for Digital FreeThought Radio Hour. Remember, everybody is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life, and we'll see you next week. Say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hey, good.